Will you open your Bibles to the book of Deuteronomy? Deuteronomy chapter 11. I am going to be reading from verses 1 to 7. From verses 1 to 7. Can you make me a little bit louder? My microphone. Therefore you shall love the Lord your God and keep his church, his statutes, his judgments, and his commandments always. Know today that I do not speak with your children who have not known and who have not seen the chastening of the Lord your God, his greatness and his mighty hand and his outstretched arm, his signs and his acts which he did in the midst of Egypt. To Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to all his land. What he did to the army of Egypt, to their horses and their chariots, how he made the waters of the Red Sea overflow them as they pursue you, and how the Lord has destroyed them to this day. What he did for you in the wilderness until you came to this place, and what he did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, how the oath opened his mouth and swallowed them up, their households, their tents, and all the substance that was in their possession, in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen every great act of the Lord, which he did. I'm going to continue the message that I preached on today morning, I'm sorry. How many of you remember the topic of that message? Yes. Will you say it to me? Will you tell me? Not just sons. Do I have any son close? But not really. Oh, who said that? Has God no sons? Has God no sons? That's a question mark. Has God no sons? Now, tonight's message is going to be titled, The Breeding of Sons. It's like a continuation. The breeding of sons. The breeding of sons. Now, that is interesting because, especially looking from where we are coming from, where we are reading from, how could we breed sons from Deuteronomy and the passage we just read? Well, that is why we thank God for the spirit of revelation. Well, we can see insight here for graduating from childhood to sonship. And you know, until you grow from childhood to sonship, you cannot be given to your generation as a blessing. Until you have become a son, you cannot make any impact and you cannot come to the place of fulfillment. Until you have become a son, you cannot be revealed to your generations. And until you have become a son, you cannot be manifested. Your manifestation is held on hold until you grow up. And until you grow up and become son, you are subjected to the elements of life. And the things that you are supposed to be ruling on begins to rule on you. And they are members of the jury. Until you grow up and become a son, the grace of God is not released to full capacity in your life. Because it says in Luke chapter 2 verse 40, and the child grew and increased, was strengthened in the spirit, and in wisdom and in grace, until you grow, no wisdom manifestation, no manifestation of the Spirit, and no manifestation of abundant grace. And the same thing is said in Luke 2, verse 52. And so, therefore, we know it is imperative that we grow up and become sons. I emphasized that in the morning, but I'm going to take you further this evening, for you to know what are the steps that the Lord would like to take you through to become a son, so that we might know when things are happening to us that it is not the enemy that is against us, but our loving Father is trying to work on us and take us to a place where He could trust us, and where He could use us, and where He could bring His purpose to fulfillment in our lives, so that we might know the workings and recognize the acts of God as soon as He begins to work with us. So, in this passage that we just read, I would like you to read together with me verse 2. You don't need to read it loud. I will just read it. It says, "Know today that I do not speak with your children, who have not known and who have not seen the chastening of the Lord your God, His greatness and His mighty hand and His outstretched arm." Now let me read that again. "Know today that I do not speak with your children." Let everybody say that. He didn't say, "I did not speak to your children." He said, "I do not speak to children. I do not speak to your children. I do not speak to children." Because only, according to Romans 8:14, only as many as are led by the Spirit are sons. So therefore, the conclusion is clear. Only sons are led by what? By the Spirit. That is why God doesn't speak to who? To children. "I do not speak to your children. I do not speak to children. I do not speak to children. I do not speak to children." Now, from this passage, we could also see not just the reason, not just the fact that God does not speak to children, but we could also see why He does not speak to children, so that we may know the things and the factors that are holding us back from becoming sons. And if we deal with those factors, that means we can easily be transferred from childhood, from being a child to being a son. So he says, number one, I'm going to give you 8 factors today. 8 ways of God taking you from childhood. 8 ways God will use to breed you to become a son. 8 ways of God's brewing and breeding to make you become a son. Number 1, if you read verse 1, it says, "Therefore you shall love the Lord your God and keep His church, His statutes, His judgments, and His commandments always." Therefore you shall love the Lord your God. Then and then only you shall keep His commandments, His judgments, and His statutes. Yes. There is no beating around it. There is no going around it. The greatest weapon in this kingdom we're in is to be fanatically in love with Him. And I said fanatically. Underline the word fanatical. To be desperately and to the utmost in love with Him. That's why I don't care. Do you know that I don't look to be I don't look to be the kind of guy that lives by the norms. Did you notice that? That I don't observe all the protocols and all the things that are supposed to be observed, and all the societal demands and all the ethical and all the standards and all the ethics and all the ministerial things. I don't behave like that. I'm like a kind of wild guy coming from the wild wilderness somewhere. Now let me tell you why. Because I'm wildly in love with him. Not just somehow in love with him. I am crazily in love with him. I am wildly in love with him. Totally in love with him. And I don't care for your protocol, and I don't care for your ethics, I don't care for your ministerial whatever and whatever. I am in love, and that is all that matters to me. In love with my Creator. In love with him that first loved me and gave his life for me. In love, I am abandoned, totally abandoned in his hands. I have decided that these emotions will not follow pornography, not praise pornography. They will not be agitated by pornography. They will not be aroused by sexual pollutions of the world. They will be aroused by him alone. I have decided that I will not be excited and be made happy by the jokes and the jokes of these lives. He is going to be the thing that is exciting me and arousing me. I have decided that if he died for me and bought me with his blood, that it's only him that I would dedicate everything he has given me to serve. Not myself, not my ego, not other people's opinion, not other people's views, but I'm just going to dedicate my totality, my mind, my strength, my body, my spirit to him. But that actually is what every one of us is supposed to be doing. Yes. Because he says to love the Lord thy God with all your heart. But we don't. When we sing, especially Americans, I like looking at them, especially during praise and worship. As if they don't have Moses. But you go and see them the way they work in their jobs. Look at the way they praise. They play their games or share their sportsmen. Listen to me. God did not create your energy and your strength for those things. He said to love him with all your strength. And when you come with your strength to him, to his presence, you hold back. You don't give him what belongs to him. But you use what belongs to him for your own things. You use it to do your work with all your strength. But he said, this is what I was asking you to do for me. For me. Love me with all your strength. Me. Not do your job only with all your strength, but me first. Me first. Learn to love me. You cannot love and not be passionate. You cannot love and not be emotional. You cannot love and not be passionate about it. That's why it demands to love him with all our, not just with all our hearts. Because some of the Baptist guys could say, well, it's only demanding it from the heart. But thank God Jesus added strength to it, which refers to the body. We need to turn around our old theology, our old perception of the Bible. We need to just, I'm telling you, you need to throw everything you knew about God away and begin to read the Bible again afresh. So that's why I'm crazy for him at all time. That's why anything I do for him, I do it with all my heart, my strength. Some of you, you cannot even use your strength to do anything. You don't do anything from your heart to the Lord at all. You just do it as a routine. God have mercy on us. But when you go home, you scream with your voice. What God gave you to use to praise him, you scream with it and do evil with it. What God gave you to use for him, you use it for your job. You talk very well with all your energy. You go to friends and you are alive and you live a very lively life with your friends. You use it for yourself because you think that is going to give you something. So what God is really demanding for, and God is a jealous God, let me tell you.
Yes, he is.
And at that time, he's jealous.
Yes.
He's just jealous and say, okay. How much have you and your actions caused God to jealous? How much have you, because we don't know how to love him? Listen to me. Loving God genuinely as he demands it is the first step to knowing him. When you love him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your might, then that is the first step to knowing him. It draws you close to himself. I like a place in John chapter 14 verse 20-21. It says that they that love me, they obey my commandment, and I come to them and I make my dwelling with them. So deep place, deep truth. When you love him, you provoke him to come and reveal himself. He says, I come and reveal myself to them, and then I make my dwelling with them. Chapter 14, 20-21. I come and reveal myself, manifest myself to him because of love. You cannot underestimate love. And because of that passionate love, that is why you automatically obey his commandments. But if you don't love him passionately, that passion that you hold back, you will use it for something else. I bet you. You will use it for sex. You will use it for, lust. You will use it for pride. You will use it for ego. You will use it for anything because you did not give it totally to him whom it belongs to. So Satan sees that reserve that you have, and he comes and fills it with his own garbage. But if you will love him with all your strength, with all your might, if you don't love him with all your mind, there is no way you can prove to me that you don't have evil thoughts. Evil thoughts will dominate your life because you don't love him with all your life. All right? And you're talking to me about being a son? You can never graduate to be a son until you become a radical lover of God. An addicted lover of God. There is no way you can become a son. Because that's read John and see the relationship of Jesus to the Father. It is love that is the binding strength. Love is the thing. Love is the thing that binds them together. I know my Father because he's with me. I love him because that's why I come to reveal him. Love is the key. So any one of us that wants to seriously graduate from being a child into being a son, the first thing we must begin with is to radically dedicate ourselves to loving him. Read his word with satisfaction. Imagine him before you. Talk to him, weep before him, embrace him in your spirit. Imagine him standing before you, fall in love with him, hold him, embrace him. I do that with him every day. I see Jesus every day. It is possible you can walk with God. We can fall in love with God to the extent that you will begin to see him every day. He's real to me more than for all of you. I see him right now as I'm here. I only need to open my eyes spiritually. And as soon as I join the wave, I see him. He's here. I know where he's standing right now beside me. Because of love, will you become a lover of God or not? That is why it is the only thing God is demanding from us. You shall love me with all your heart, then you shall keep my commandments. The commandment of God is not because you are keeping it so that it might feel good. No. Because by the commandment, it keeps you. By the commandment, he saves you. By the commandment, he strengthens you. By the commandment, he makes you undefeatable. Well, we will not do too much of that because I have 8 points to go. Number 2. The second point that we're going to be talking about. Let's read that verse 2 again, Deuteronomy 11:2. Know today that I do not speak with your children who have not known and who have not seen the chastening of the Lord. God wants us to know him, but he's also saying these people have not just not known him, but they have also not seen the chastening of the chastening, the punishment, the correction of the Lord. Because they have not seen the correction, God has not dealt with them in the area of correction. So he says, I cannot speak to them. They cannot become sons. Because sons are the people who have been corrected, who have been chastised when necessary. Sons that I can speak to, they are the people who have taken through some things, and I cannot trust them. So can you imagine that? And that is why some of the preachings that are going on in America, I'm sorry for that, that says all bad things, all negative things, all suffering or hard time we have is Satan that is bringing it. That is false doctrine. They said God doesn't punish anybody. God doesn't take you through trials. Oh man, false doctrine. He said you cannot even become a son. You cannot even become a son. You can remain children, but not a son. You know why they are preaching that message? It is because only sons can understand chastisement. Only sons can understand chastisement. Children run away from chastisement. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 12. You have to be mature before you could be able to endure chastisement. You have to be grown up. You have to understand God. You have to become son before you could know chastisement are good for you. But for the children, they run away from it because they think their parents are wishing them evil. Chapter 12 of Hebrews, reading from verses 5 to 8. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons. Notice the word sons, and count how many times we are going to meet the word sons as we read. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as to sons. What is that exhortation? What exhortation is speaking to us as sons? The exhortation that speaks to us as sons is chastisement. Because it says, my son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord. Do not despise it. My son, only sons don't despise chastening. Nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives. Every son who he loves and receives. Verse 7. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. If you endure chastening, God deals with you as sons. As sons. Only when God loves you and he doesn't want to lose you, he corrects you. But as soon as God stops to correct you and chastise you, you are in trouble. You are lost for good and for eternity. However, the reason why this chastisement comes only second is because you don't have to go through it. If you are desperately and totally sold out to God and you are in love with him. The reason why you need to be corrected is because you are going astray. The reason why you need to be chastised is because you have done something wrong. So, and because he loves you, he wants to bring you back by correction. But you don't need to be corrected if you are already obedient. That is why it says the first thing to become a son is not through chastisement. The first step to become a son is to fall in love with God radically. Then you will definitely obey his commandment. If you are in love with him enough. If you are in love with him with all your mind, with all your soul, you will not have evil thoughts. But if you are not in love with him entirely like that, he will need to do something to correct you and to show you the evil of the path you have chosen. If you are not in love with him with all your strength, you will use your strength for some other things. And he will need to chastise you so that it will bring you back to a place whereby you will be able to love him with all your heart and with all your strength. It is to correct you. That's why we punish you, so that you could come back and understand what you are supposed to understand just by love instead of by punishment. Anybody understanding me? But they are all the same processes that God uses to bring us to sonship. But if you are without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. So if you are doing things wrong and God is not telling you anything, then you are dead. Because God has cancelled you from his team, and he has made you illegitimate. Because it says if you are not being chastised, then you are already illegitimate and not sons. Dangerous place to be in. Very dangerous place. Number 3, the third way God deals with us to bring us to sonship. That's why it says, as long as you remain a child, as long as you don't want me to correct you and to chastise you, I will not speak to you because you are children. Although you are still in the kingdom, you are still going to heaven, but you are not willing to grow up. So I will not speak to children. I don't speak to your children. He doesn't even call them his children. He calls them your children. They are yours because they don't want to be like me. They don't want to love me like I demanded. Then they don't want to receive my corrections. Then they are not good for me. Let them become as good as slaves. Because the hair that is not growing up to become sons is as good as slaves. The children in the house, although they belong to the house, but they are not growing up to become sons, they are as good as slaves. So number 3. Let's read that verse, Deuteronomy 11 verse 2 again. He said, know today that I do not speak with your children who have not known and who have not seen the chastening of the Lord your God. I did not speak to them because they have not gone through the processes of sonship. They have not seen his greatness. The next thing I want you to notice how God brings us to sonship is by revealing his greatness to us. He said they have not seen his greatness, so I cannot speak to them as sons. They have not seen my greatness, so I cannot speak to them as sons. They have not seen my greatness, so they are children still. That is why what Dr. Gary Connor spoke about today, about the revival going on in Ukraine, and about the importance of going to see it, is so crucial. Because if you have not seen God doing great things, you will never be able to know he's a great God. Everything you know about him will only be theory. If you have not seen and been in the atmosphere, if his greatness has not been manifested to you, then we create McDonald's Christians. It swears you up, but it doesn't grow you up. And there is a significant difference between grow up and swell up. Oh. Many of us in our pews have been made to feel we are big because we have been swollen up by McDonald's. But what God really wanted is that we will not be swollen, but we will be grown up. Hallelujah. That we will grow up in quality and in status before his eyes, before his face, and not just be swollen up. And for you not just to have ideas about God. And when I look at all the catalog of Christian books in America, I feel they are giving us McDonald's, my brothers and sisters. I feel they want us to be swollen up, my brothers and sisters. I feel they are just enlarging our heads, my brothers and sisters, and not really giving us the nutrients of God that could cause true development. Oh God. Because none of them is revealing to me how I could be a God lover and how I could know Him. They are telling me how I could feel better with Him. Again, using Him to make me the goal. Oh God. But God knows the difference. You know, you can fool people, but you cannot fool Him. So God said, no, I cannot still speak to you. Although you are big in size, but you are not grown up. I can still not speak to you because you are swollen, but you are still not grown up. You have not seen my greatness. You have not seen my greatness. You have not seen my greatness. You wonder why in the 40s and 50s there was such a big healing move in America. It's because some people, few people that God raised up to do signs and miracles, they were doing it so convincingly, they knew God so well, that in every quarter there were healing ministers. People, they were just springing up. Because they saw, when you see a lame walk, when you see the blind open your eyes, your faith grows up immediately. You see that God is big and can do it. So all over America there were thousands of healing ministers. Why? They saw! And they didn't have problem. It was not theory. They didn't tell them. They didn't learn it. They didn't memorize it. That God is great. But God is particular about what? Saying His greatness. So you have to go to places where His greatness has been demonstrated. That's why the invitation to Ukraine, to Southern Light in September, if you can wait, I don't know if I be in your place, I'm too much in love, I'm too crazy for God. I cannot wait for 1 year. I would have gone before that and go again in Southern Light. Yeah, that is my kind of guy. Because I'm sold out for Him. I mean, I don't live for any other thing apart from Him. I just want to find Him. That's why I challenge you this morning. If any one of you really wants to get serious with God, come with me on a 10-day fast. And I will teach you how to pray 18 hours a day straight. Then when you come back to America, you will see that to do revival is cheap. Revival is cheap. It's not a big deal that you are looking for. You are thinking it's so tough. So easy to do. Because you have been trained. Because you have seen His greatness, so you can perform. All right? That is only number 3. Number 4. I cannot speak to them because they are children. Because they have not seen my greatness. They have not been chastened by me. They don't love me. They have not fallen in love crazily with me. And He says further, they have not seen my greatness and they have not seen His might. He says His greatness and His might. All right? Not seen His greatness and His might. Might His mighty hand, and His outstretched arm. They have not seen His greatness, His mighty hand, and His outstretched arm. His mighty hand and outstretched arm. Outstretched arm is the arm and the hand of deliverance. That is talking about experiencing the mighty arm and the hand of the mighty hand and the outstretched arm of the Lord. That is, you have not experienced God. Experience. He has not delivered you from something. He has not, you have not experienced his outstretched to you hands. His arm has to be his arm has to be outstretched to you. He has to lift you. If he has lifted you, it is easy for you to lift others. If he has touched you, it's easy for you to touch others. That is why in our church, I demand of everybody that has been touched by God. I say, if you have experienced the arm and the touch of God, you should not sit down in the church. You should not sit down in the hall. Like, that is why Pastor Natasha, you know her. She was drinking 30 years. Yeah, 30 years in our church. She was drinking alcoholic. She was in the world. So when we started our church, she got saved after 30 years. And you know what happened? I told her, and God gave her the burden. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes God will call you to another direction. But she was touched by God. She was set free from 30 years alcoholism. And now she's pastoring the largest church a woman pastors in the whole of Europe. After 30 years of alcoholism. She's pastoring 3,000 people. You know why? Because she decided to go and sow herself and her life into addicts, drug addicts and alcoholic addicts. So she was giving herself totally to them. It began to grow. She quit her job. It began to grow even more. Now she has 3,000 people in her church. And our church is full of those kind of stories. A girl that used to be a prostitute. I said, God has touched you. You have seen the outstretched arm of the Lord. Now you can believe him because it's easier for you to believe him for it. After you have seen the outstretched arm of the Lord in your life, how he has lifted you up, faith is easy for you. And you must take advantage of that. You must take advantage of it. If you don't take advantage of it and begin to release your faith, because he has healed me, now I can heal others. If you don't do that, then your muscles become, what do we call, atrophied. Yeah, it becomes atrophied. Your muscles, your spiritual muscles and power, they lose strength. And you cannot, although God has shown you his arm, but you didn't use it. You didn't do anything with it, so you lose it. Kenneth Hagin, that just went to be with the Lord, the reason why he became so famous and had such a big ministry is because he saw the outstretched arm of the Lord healing him, so he turned into a ministry. It was easier for him now to believe God because he experienced healing. So anybody that wants to become a son should not only love God, he should not only receive corrections from the Lord, he should not only see the majesty of God, the mightiness of God, the greatness of God, but he should also experience. And that's why experience is so important. When people take us, I listen to the testimony of John and Carol. They said they went to Argentina at the peak of the revival and they were touched. They went to other places. They went to Benny Hinn's ministry. They were touched. Then they began to cry out for the Lord. They began to eager for God. And as a result, God came down because they experienced him. They saw his outstretched arm and they know this is possible here. I remember when I first saw people, when I went to Russia, I was only 6 months in the Lord. But I was healed before I went. I was touched by God. So when the communists, I was only 6 months in the Lord. So all the professors were coming to the classes and they were teaching us, they were trying to brainwash us and say there is no God. They were teaching us all kinds of doctrines and all kinds of theories, all kinds of scientific proofs that there was no God. And I was just sitting down in the hall and I just said, he touched me, he healed me. What can you say? I mean, there is nothing you can say. I have seen and I have experienced his mighty and outstretched arm. So it was easy for me to believe him, to go closer to him, and to be radical for him. But if you don't make advantage of it, Satan will make advantage of you. The reason why God reveals all those things to you is that you might believe and be able to step forward like a son will do and take responsibility to take his arm and his mighty power to other places. Anybody listening to me? Number 5. Verses 3 and 4. His signs and his acts which he did. He's saying, I do not speak to the children, because they have not known me. They have not seen my signs and wonders. They have not seen my greatness. And he's continued to say, they have not seen. I do not speak to them because they are children. They have not seen the signs, verse 3, the signs and the acts which he did in the midst of Egypt. They had not seen that. To Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to all his land. They have not seen that. Verse 4, which he did to the army of Egypt, to their horses and their chariots, how he made the waters of the Red Sea overflow them as they pursued you, and how the Lord has destroyed them to this day. They have not seen it. Before you can become a son in this kingdom, you must be able to see the judgment of God over nations. You must be able to see the judgment of God over nations. Only sons are able to see a nation subdued to the Lord. And before you can be able to, because God doesn't want us to just go into countries or into cities and build a church, a small church just in a quarter. He wants you to see a whole nation coming under his influence and under his authority. A whole country is being subdued by him. That is why he said, I cannot use him. Stand up, please. I cannot use him. Why? Come here. I cannot use you because you cannot see that I am capable of subduing a nation. You cannot see it. You have not seen me deal with Egypt. You have not seen the way I destroy all their power. But you are still afraid. You think this is America. This is a big country. It's too big. It's not Ukraine that's just 50 million. We have Hollywood here. We have the liberals here. We have the Democrats here that do not allow us to come forward. We cannot do it. We cannot really change a nation. Where I could only build my ministry. Maybe I could affect my city. Maybe I could affect my country. My little corner. Maybe my state at most. But to influence the whole nation and to become the topic of the news in the whole nation. No, maybe we could affect only the Christian world. But he said, you cannot become a son, and I cannot trust you because of that. I cannot trust you because you did not see how I dealt with a nation that was stronger. You did not see how I dealt with a whole nation, how I subdue a whole nation, the whole nation of Egypt, and this king Pharaoh under my feet. You did not see it. You cannot see it. You did not see that I'm mightier, I am stronger, I am more powerful than any nation of the earth. You did not see that all the nations of the earth are only but a drop of water upon my hands. You did not see that they are nothing to me. You did not see that the whole earth and the whole universe is in my one right hand. I hold them in my right hand. So if the whole is hand and universe is million times bigger than the earth, so what is US in it? It's less than a dust. It's less than a dust in his hand. It's less than a dust in his hand. You must see that I am mighty. I am the Almighty God that subdued nations. Only his son is able to see that your position before him is nothing, that nations are nothing, and that is why you will be able to believe him when he says in Psalm 2 verse 8 that ask of me and I will give nations into your inheritance. But you cannot ask because you did not see how I subdued nations. You cannot ask because you did not see how I brought judgment over pharaohs of this world and their nations. You did not see. That's why you are not asking for a nation. You are asking for a church that I build a church for you. You are asking for your ministry that I bless your ministry. You are asking for everything else, but you are not asking for what I'm asking you to ask. I am not after church buildings. I am not after streets. I am not after just neighborhoods. I am after nations. I ask you to ask of me nations. And only sons can see nations and believe and demand for it. But for that, you have to be able to see the picture and the story of the children of Israel in Egypt differently. differently. See it as God's prototype for us, as God's example for us, that He wants me to be like Moses and believe Him. That He can deal with every Pharaoh that I encounter. He can deal with every Herod that is ruling my nation. He can come in His mighty power and bring a nation and subdue it under my feet. Under my feet. Under my feet. Under my feet. And not just know it in your head, but believe it is possible and begin to walk towards that. That is what made me a 19-year-old kid to stand before the terror of communism in the underground church and see dare to believe God that if you did it for Pharaoh, you will bring down communism down. Yes. And He did it. Oh, come on. Come on. And now, when they told me they are going to take me away from Ukraine, and the Attorney General of the country came on television and say, these are the names of the missionaries that we are sending away from the countries. One from Jehovah's Witness, one from the Church of Christ, one from the Mormons, and Sandey Adelaja, who is the leader of the charismatic cult. And he read that over television and published it in the newspaper that it has been signed by the Attorney General of the country, that if he doesn't live in 14 days, we are going to deport him. By force, we are going to arrest him and throw him out. So I came to the church and said, He is too small to get me out of the country. Too small. Because I saw what my God did with Pharaoh. He is too small. If Pharaoh is too small for God, then the Attorney General of the nation is too small to get rid of me. Too small. Too small. Somebody say too small. Too small. Satan is too small to stop you. Too small to stop you from taking over the nation. Too small to stop you from seeing a revival in your city. Too small, Satan. And the thing that could make you to say that is this eye of the sun. When you have been able to climb higher with the Lord and be able to see with the eye of God how He dealt with pharaohs of this world and how He overthrew the nations of the earth. And every time you read a story in the Bible of how God used Israel to overthrow a nation, don't just read it as a story. See it as what God is telling you, that the same is going to do with you. And through you, He's going to overthrow your city, your nation, and wherever He sends you. See it like that. And so when everybody in Ukraine is busy building a church and trying to be nice so that the government doesn't give them trouble, so that the KGB doesn't follow them, I am throwing everybody a challenge that I'll bring in 5 million Ukrainians to the Lord, only to our church. 5 million. Yes. And we already have 1 million conversions. Why? Because I could see how it death and brought judgment over nations. Can you see the scope of nations? Or you are too small in your thinking? Sons see the acts of God, and it causes them to believe Him for greater things. So God says, because they cannot see like that, I cannot speak to them, because they are children. Because they cannot see like that, because they cannot imagine, they cannot comprehend my acts over Pharaoh, and they have not seen all the wonders I did. They don't know that I'm capable of doing it. They don't believe me that I'm capable of doing it, and so I cannot reveal myself to them, and so I cannot manifest my power to them. The reason why God is not turning this country over is because God is looking for somebody who will take responsibility for a whole nation. And when I look at America, and I don't want to talk about anybody now, and I see all the big ministries that you have here, and I hear how much millions they spend only on Christian television just to come out and show their programs, and when I see what ministries they are building and how much money they spend on their building, I said, if I had been in America, I know what to do. I will strategize it by the Spirit of God, and I will make sure that I raise up in every city a church of 5,000 of the same spirit, of the same church, in every city. then tell me the government that will not count with us. Tell me the liberal that will not count with us. Tell me the Democrats that will not come and beg us before they go for election. But instead of us to see that big picture, we keep on building one church, one big church, big 20,000, 50,000, big ministry. So we put Sandey Adelaja's ministries, and we just want to say, yeah, I've done. So we don't even plant churches. We don't even send out our strong men. We don't even go and raise up strong, mighty men like David that will go and do more than we have done. We don't even think of it. We think, oh, they have their church in that city. They have their, oh man, there is no spirit of conqueror. There is no spirit of Caleb. There is no spirit of Joshua. And God is crying, can't you see what I've done with Pharaoh? If you cannot see it, I cannot give you the land. Because you are not saying that what I ask you to ask for is not for a fragment. I ask you to ask for the nations. And so when God begins to challenge you, when I began to go to the Netherlands, I didn't go there just to preach and start my branch church. I went to shake the nation. And after 3 years, we have 50 churches in the country. 50 churches. And the government is coming to with the national television, the Channel 1, to pay 300,000 euros, showing me 1 hour live prime time in their national television, because of the effect that got to them. A nation that never welcomes Christian preachers. They are paying themselves, paying to the tune of 300,000 euros just to come and shoot. And then they sent a crew of television people to come to Ukraine and see if it is true what we are doing there. And after they saw that it is true, they made a film about us. And now they are going to be make it into a cassette and be selling it soon. That this is not a phenomenon, this is true. We're talking about changing the nation. And God said, because they have not seen that, I cannot speak to them. They are children. They are not thinking in the sense or in the level of sons. But I'm looking for sons. So when God challenges you with big things, go to the Bible, see how He did it, and begin to believe Him. It is not just a story for us to know. It is not just a story for us to narrate and preach from. Because we have made the story of Pharaoh and Israel and Egypt to be a preaching topic. But God doesn't want you to just retell the story. He already told the story better than you can ever retell it. He already told it better than you can ever retell it or preach it. He already preached it here. But the reason why He fixed it in the Bible is for you to be able to repeat it. And overcome the Pharaohs of your days. And subdue the Egypts of your generation. Where He sends you to. What number is that? Number 6 now. Verse 5. He says, I cannot speak to children. I don't speak to children. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. I don't speak to children. Why? Because they did not see what He did for you in the wilderness until you came to this place. They have not passed through the wilderness with me. They have not they are not equipped with the wilderness experience. Have you gone through the wilderness? Have you been found faithful in the wilderness? Have you seen the acts of the Lord in the wilderness? Have you passed the test in the wilderness like Caleb and Joshua? Do you have your wilderness testimonies and miracles? Because the wilderness is the place where God performed all the miracles. As soon as they enter into the land of Canaan, all the miracles stop. So what are the bears that you have killed? What are the lions that you have killed? What are the testimonies that are keeping you from your years of trial where you withstood and succeeded? What are the testimonies of dryness and of attacks and of a great wilderness experience that you survived? Have you come out of any wilderness with any testimony at all? Or you have already died there and you don't know because you are still breathing? Some of us are already dead in the wilderness, but because we are still physically alive, we thought we are still alive. But really, we have lost our passion in the wilderness. Really, we have lost our first love in the wilderness. But we are dead and buried long time in the wilderness, and we are still deceiving ourselves that we are alive because we are physically walking. But there is a difference between living and existing. Many of us have stopped to live the second year after our salvation. Many of us have ceased to live the third year, the fifth year after our salvation. What have we begun to do? We have begun to only exist. We have been buried in the wilderness because we did not survive the attacks that came on us. And instead of us to become stronger out of the wilderness experience, we have become weaker and we have just become churchgoers. And instead of us just to begin to do more things in the 10th, 20th year of our belief, but we can only refer to the first and second year how we believe and did exploits. But now we are no more capable of doing it because we are dead in the wilderness. We are not equipped to be strong. The wilderness is supposed to make you stronger. The wilderness experience is supposed to equip you. The wilderness is your chance for greatness. The wilderness is a place where you are supposed to come from fully fired up. With all the troubles that I have passed through, they have only made me stronger. With all the attacks that the devil has thrown at me, I have only become only mightier in the Lord. Everything that the enemy has done to stop me has only pushed me closer to him and caused me to be stronger than ever before. Every day you see me, I am stronger than the day before. Listen to me. If you are colder and you are less stronger, you are less stronger today than you were yesterday, you are backsliding. Only you don't know it, or you don't want to confess it to yourself. Compare your love today to your first year. Compare your love today to your second year. Compare your passion for him today. Save us. Some of us need to fall into our faces and begin to confess that I've lost it. I was dead long time in the wilderness, but I didn't know it. And you can remember it. The experience that made you to go down. That made your passion to die. The thing that you went through from which you could not rise up again. The experiences and the attacks that came against you and from which you could not be as sharp as you used to be. You can all remember it. At what moment your Christianity became a regular tradition and a routine. You can all remember it when it was all passion, when it was all faith, when it was all power, when it was all going out all the way. But you remember at what stage it became just a normal thing everybody does. You remember how you used to condemn others for their coldness, and you don't remember, and now you know you are in the same category with them. You are now normal. When they used to think you are not normal before, but you are not now normal like every other person. Repent! Remember where you have fallen and go down there and gather yourself again. But the people that God will be able to trust, the people that God will be able to speak to, are the people who have used their wilderness and have turned into a resource to generate power and energy. The people that have turned their wilderness into strength. The people that have turned their valley into a valley, in the fountain of water. Those are the people he's talking about, who passed through the wilderness and have a testimony, and the wilderness have made them stronger, and it has not killed them like the 10 spies. But the 2 of them were made stronger because of the testimony, because they stood firm. Tonight we are going to pray, and we are going to remember everything that has killed something in us, killed the passion in us, killed the fire in us, the thing that stole the first love in us. We are going to remember the point where we lost it, and we are going to come to the altar and say, God, I go back. I want to retrace my path. I want to retrace my path. I want to retrace it and regain that first love again, and regain that passion again, and regain that strength in the Lord again. You become stronger in your wilderness, and you come with a wilderness experience. Only those people God graduate into sonship, and He trusts with His secrets. Number 7, which is about the second to the last. Deuteronomy 11 verse 6. And what He did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, they have not seen what I did to these people. So they are children. Until you see what God did to rebellious people, you are children. You are a child. Until you learn that rebellion is dangerous and rebellion will kill you. Until you are not capable of being rebellious, you are a child, because you have the spirit of Judah in you, and you will not be able to make it through. That's why it says, until they see what I did. They did not see what I did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben. How the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, their strongholds, their tents, and all their substance that was in their possession, in the midst of all of Israel. God is reminding them and telling them, these people cannot become sons, because they did not see what happened to the people who rebelled in the wilderness. They did not see what happened to the rebellious people against my servant Moses. And if you are not taught in the principles of God, how God sends judgment upon rebellious people, God cannot trust you with everything in the kingdom, because you are still a child. If you are a son, and you know you cannot be rebellious, so you cannot be rebellious against the set man in the house, you know already that whatever happens, I will never be rebellious. And the reason why all these church splits in Ukraine and in the USA, why all the churches are splitting up, and you don't like it, you begin your own church. You don't like the pastor, you begin your own church. You don't like this, you begin your own church. It's because of children. Because people are children. They are kids. They are not grown up. Because sons, they know and they see what God do to Abraham and to the children of Korah. Children know that nothing should ever lead us to rebellion, because it's a foretaste of whatever is the fate of Judea that betrayed Jesus. That's why betrayal is always hated in the Old Testament and in the New also, because it's a picture of how somebody was going to betray the Son of God. And you know that the spirit of Judah should never abide in a son. In a true son, there is never a spirit of rebellion, never a rebellious spirit, never the spirit of Judah in the house. And that's why God, unless you are tried in that, unless you have seen that and you have been purified, God cannot make you the Lord of the house. He cannot turn you into a son. Anybody understanding me today? You have to be purified from self-seeking, because that is the root of rebellion. That is what Satan did and disqualified him from heaven. He said, I, self-seeking, self-sin, self-seeking. He said, how could you receive honor from the Lord if you seek your own? If you seek your own gain, let's be dead to self-seeking. True sons that will be elevated in the kingdom, they are dead to themselves. They only want to seek the one that will please him. They only want to seek the things that will point to him. They only want to fulfill his will. And they only want to make him glad and to make him rejoice over them. They are no more concerned about their name. They are no more concerned about their reputation. They are no more concerned about their ministry. They are no more building their ministry. They know they are dead long time ago. And they say, and in response to the question of God, when he say, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me so? Then they say, yes, you know, Lord, because their hearts are pure. They don't have any ulterior motives. What about you? And because these people have not been tried in that area of rebellion, they have not seen the judgment of God that comes on rebellious people. God said they cannot become sons. I cannot speak to them. They are children. Are you still capable of rebellion? Of rebelling? It's a question to you today. Are you still capable of rebelling? Even if your set man is wrong, even if your pastor is wrong, even if you see the nakedness of your father, God has permitted you to see that nakedness, not for you to scorn him. God permitted you to see that nakedness, not to mock him. God permitted you to see the nakedness so that you might cover him. God wants people to be sons who will graduate and be set free from the spirit of harm. So he said, they have not seen what I did with Abiram. They have not seen what I did with Dathan. They have not seen what I did with the sons of Eliab. They have not seen the judgment that I brought upon them. So they cannot become sons. If you are still capable of, jilting people or betraying people or rebelling, even if you are right, you are still a child. You are not qualified. That is why he said in Corinthians that I cannot speak to you as to mature people, as to sons. I can only speak to you as to babes, because some of you say I'm Apollos and some of you say I'm Paul's. You cannot become sons. So if you are still in that category that says, well, I'm in this camp, well, I'm in this camp, well, I'm in this camp, well, you are going to spend a long time in a kindergarten. And the next thing this thing teaches us is, when you see they have not seen the judgment that I brought upon rebellion, it says, if they have known how I judge rebellion, they will have the fear of the Lord. There is nobody that could truly become a son without having the fear of the Lord. I read the book of Jim, whatever, the TV guy, the PTL guy, Jim Baker. I read his confession when he said I was wrong. In his book, people were asking him, why did you do that? How could you do those kind of evil things against the Lord? Did you know they were wrong? He said, well, I didn't really realize at the point, but what really made me not to realize was I thought I always loved the Lord. I loved the Lord, and even when I was doing the worst things, even when I was sleeping with the secretary or whoever, I knew I still loved the Lord anyway. So I thought that as long as I love the Lord, that God knows that I love him anyway, that I'm saved, that my salvation is intact. I love the Lord. But he said the thing that I didn't have, even though I love the Lord, but I could still do all the evil things, is that I didn't fear him. But you see, that is not love. Because when you love him, you obey his commandments. When you love him, you fear him. That's why it says here, they have not seen my judgment, so they don't have my fear. There is no way you can become a son if you don't have the fear of the Lord. Fear him. Fear him. And that will keep you from evil. It will keep you from self-destruction. It will keep you from sin and iniquity. The last one. Verse 7. He said, they cannot become sons. They are still children. I cannot speak to them because they have not, but your eyes they have not seen what your eyes have seen, every great act of the Lord which he did. He was talking to the father. He said, your eyes have seen every great act that I did to he was telling Moses, your eyes have seen every great act of the Lord that I did, but they have not seen it. They have not seen every great act of the Lord that I did. That is training process. There is no way you can become a son without being trained to know his ways. In Psalm 103 verse 7, it says, he showed his acts to the children of Israel, but his ways to Moses. Because through his acts, Moses got to know him. But the children of Israel, they were only being excited about the acts. They never bothered about knowing his ways. So children never know the ways of the Lord. They only want to be excited about the miracles. They only want to be excited about the things of the house. They only want to be excited about the acts of God. They only want to be excited about what God is doing, and relax and just talk about it and just say, wow, it's great. Wow, what a great message. But the sons, they listen to the message and say, what are the decisions I'm taking from now? What are the things that I didn't do before that I need to begin to do? What are the points out of the 8 points that is missing in my life? What are the steps that I'm beginning to take to improve them? What are the things that I'm going to begin to supplement and to restore in my work with the Lord? But the children, they are only excited about the show, about the act, about the message itself. They only want to clap and rejoice. They think that qualifies them to do the act. But no, sir. No, sir. They don't want to do, they want to be in the environment. They like the environment. But they don't take decisions that will enable them through the acts to know the ways. Some of us even go to the extent of taking notes, but we never do go to the paths, to the ways, by controlling ourselves and eating it over and over again until it becomes a flesh. Because until the word becomes flesh, the truth and the grace therein contained can never be released upon your life. Because it is said that the flesh was with us, the flesh was among us, and it became flesh full of truth and grace. The word became flesh full of truth and grace. Only when at the point when the word becomes flesh is the truth and grace contained in the word released. So that is why when I listen to a conference like this, I take all the tapes. And you know what I do with them? I go and lock myself off for the next 3 days. And I listen over and over and until I make sure that the grace and the truth in that word has been released and become part of me. That's why I'm ever strong, ever powerful. And that's why I begin to know his path. Not just knowing the things in the head and not just knowing, oh, I heard that before. Then I begin to walk in the path. That's what makes Moses different from the crowd. Because all the crowd just want to get excited about it. Oh, we were there. We wrote some notes. I have it somewhere. Oh, I heard it before. Oh, yeah. Oh, great word. Great word. But Moses was serious. He was looking beyond the great word. He was looking beyond the great acts of God. He was looking beyond it to see the path and the secrets that lead him to producing those acts. And so my pastor was my traveling partner here, my pastor from Sweden. He was telling me that he's totally surprised why all the tables are not empty yet. I said, because deep collect into deep. Only deep people who are deeply hungry, deeply thirsty, they consume everything they know that could make them and bring them to a place of fulfillment. Deep collect into deep. Do you have any depth at all? Or everything is just shallow? Shallow. And you know what happens to the thing, to the seed that fell on the shallow ground? The birds of the air came, took them off. You only need to leave this place and you forget everything. The excitement and the pleasures of life will shock everything out of you. That's why you must take measures to not just listening and become excited about their acts, but to become sons. Sons behave differently. I said sons behave differently. Sons want to go behind it and look and go radically after the acts. Go radically after the acts. And for that, they know they have to hear it again and again. Hear it again and again. Hear it again and again. And train themselves and put themselves under duress, so that things will work for them. And so that they will now not just become the enjoyers, or receivers of the blessing, but they will now be trusted to become the carriers of the blessings. God bless you.